Assalamu alaikum. Today's lecture regarding protein metabolism is how the nutritionally non-essential amino acids are synthesized in our body from a nutritionally essential amino acids. Let me clear one thing. Every amino acid which is going to be translated into protein formation is essential. So when we previously in old textbooks, it is written essential and non-essential amino acids. That probably I think that's wrong. We simply say nutritionally essential and nutritionally non-essential amino acids, because those non-essential amino acids which are not present in our diet, they are synthesized in our body from nutritionally essential amino acids. 20 amino acids, 10 are nutritionally essential, and from these nutritionally essential amino acids, our body can synthesize the remaining 10 nutritionally non-essential amino acids. All are essential because they have a genetic coding for their translation into proteins. Now this chart is showing the number of amino acids which are nutritionally essential and which are nutritionally non-essential. You can see here 10 amino acids, they are nutritionally essential, and these 10 nutritionally non-essential can be synthesized in our body, which we will discuss today, from these different nutritionally essential amino acids. Two amino acids, arginine and histidine, they are called semi-essential amino acids because just their synthesis in children is inadequate. Though the arginine deficiency may lead to very severe oligospermia in adults, but they are called because in children they are required in a less amount, or their synthesis is inadequate, requirement is inadequate, so they are semi-essential amino acids. These two forms, hydroxyproline, hydroxylysine, which is simply the hydroxylation of proline, we get hydroxyproline, and hydroxylation of lysine, we get hydroxylysine. These are modified amino acids, not necessary for protein synthesis. Now these three enzymes, they play a central role in the synthesis of nutritionally non-essential amino acids from essential amino acids. We will discuss how these nutritionally non-essential amino acids are synthesized one by one in our body. Glutamyl family of amino acids. These amino acids, these are the members of glutamate family: glutamate, glutamine, proline, histidine, arginine, and ornithine. They are the members of the glutamate family because they comprise 25% of the dietary amino acid intake and will be disposed of via conversion into glutamate. So all these glutamine, proline, histidine, arginine, and ornithine, when we will discuss their individual metabolism, you will see that in their metabolic way, they are disposed of from the body in the form of glutamate. So these are all the members of. Now we discuss one by one how these nutritionally non-essential amino acids are synthesized in our body. First, glutamate. This reaction constitutes the first step in the biosynthesis of glutamate family of amino acids. You see here alpha ketoglutarate, which is almost always the acceptor of amino group. Whenever we take a protein diet, amino group, or in the form of ammonia, which is set free immediately, that is picked up by the alpha ketoglutarate. So this free ammonia, you see, when it combines with alpha ketoglutarate, what we get is glutamate. So it is the reductive amidation of alpha ketoglutarate, and the enzyme is glutamate dehydrogenase. Coenzyme is NADPH. If you remember, I told you this glutamate dehydrogenase is unique, that it can use both coenzymes NADPH as well as NAD in different situations. Here, when there is a synthesis of glutamate, it is using NADPH as a coenzyme. But on the other hand, when glutamate dehydrogenase is used for this deamination or conversion of glutamate into alpha ketoglutarate, what will happen? It will use NAD as a coenzyme. Now, how the glutamine is synthesized in our body? This is from glutamate. Glutamine is amide of glutamate. You simply add amino group here in the glutamate, you will get a glutamine. Enzyme is glutamine synthetase. Definitely, as the name is showing, it is using ATP, energy dependent reaction. So instead of directly forming glutamine, a first intermediate formation of gamma glutamyl phosphate and ATP takes place, and that proceeds towards the final formation of glutamine. Now 3 and 4 nutritionally non-essential amino acids, alanine and aspartate. Transamination of pyruvate results in the formation of alanine, while of oxaloacetate converted into aspartate. The enzymes we discussed in our previous lecture, these are transaminases. Different transaminases are present in our body. The most important of those are AST and ALT. The difference between the two, I have already told you, is that the tendency of all the aminotransferases, including ALT, is to convert alpha ketoglutarate to glutamate by accepting the amino group from other amino acids. While the function of AST is opposite to this. Their tendency is to convert glutamate into alpha ketoglutarate by donating its amino group to other keto acid to form amino acid. So here, by the activity of ALT, its old name was SGPT, serum glutamic pyruvate transaminase, and the old name of AST was SGOT, serum glutamic oxaloacetate transaminase. Now, asparagine. Asparagine is the amide of aspartic acid or aspartate. What happens? The enzyme is asparagine synthetase. As the name is showing, ATP is being used. The amino group donor is glutamine, and after donating amino group, glutamine is converted into glutamic acid or glutamate. So here is the aspartate. At this point, amino group will be added and it will become amide, asparagine. So first what happens, there is intermediate formation of aspartyl phosphate instead of directly converting aspartate into asparagine. So intermediate formation of aspartyl phosphate first, which proceeds to the formation of asparagine. Now the formation of serine, another nutritionally non-essential amino acid, we can synthesize, our body can synthesize this amino acid from D3-phosphoglycerate. D3-phosphoglycerate, its another name is glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. It is produced, if you remember, in the oxidation of glucose, or in the degradation of glucose, or in glycolysis. We get a 3-carbon compound, this high energy compound having phosphate, having 3 carbon, 1, 2, 3. So this is D3-phosphoglycerate. Glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate is another name. It is converted into a phosphohydroxypyruvate by the activity of this enzyme, glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate dehydrogenase, or 3-phosphoglycerate dehydrogenase. Coenzyme is NADH. So this 3-carbon compound is converted into another form of 3-carbon compound, phosphohydroxypyruvate. Phosphohydroxypyruvate. Now we want to add amino group. So after the addition of amino and hydrolysis or dephosphorylation, this will be ultimately converted into L-serine. So by transamination, most of the amino groups are being shared between the different compounds by the process of transamination. So phosphohydroxypyruvate, they get the amino group from any alpha amino acid, and that alpha amino acid is being converted into keto acids after donating their amino group. The recipient in this case is this compound, and after receiving the amino group, it is converted into phospho-L-serine. Phospho-L-serine. Now simply, if we are able to dephosphorylate this phosphate group, it will be converted into serine. So by the process of dephosphorylation. So the first step is the conversion of D3-phosphoglycerate into phosphohydroxypyruvate, and then it is converted into phospho-L-serine, and finally it is converted into L-serine. Glycine, which is the smallest of all the amino acids. It is a non-essential amino acid. Its synthesis in our body is by different ways. Glycine aminotransferases can catalyze the synthesis of glycine from glyoxylate and glutamate or alanine. Unlike most aminotransferases reactions, these aminotransferases, glycine aminotransferases, they strongly favor glycine synthesis. Additional important mammalian routes for glycine formation are from choline and serine. So we can say that there are 3 possible ways by which glycine is synthesized in our body: through glyoxylate pathway, choline pathway, and serine pathway. Serine can be directly converted into just by one step into glycine, or serine in its metabolism, we will discuss later in our lectures. In its metabolism, it is converted into glyoxylate, and glyoxylate, by passing through a series of changes, is converted into glycine. And choline, we will discuss here the 2 compounds which are responsible for the synthesis of glycine. Glyoxylate pathway we will discuss later in the lectures. First, the formation of glycine from, this is the glycine, this is the structure of the glycine, and we are synthesizing glycine from this choline through different 5 steps. The objective is to remove these 3 methyl groups of choline with addition of amino group. We get glycine from choline. So the objectives of all these steps is simply the removal and the addition of amino group to the choline. So the different enzyme 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. 1 choline dehydrogenase, and after the removal of these hydrogen under the activity of dehydrogenase enzyme, what we get is betaine aldehyde. This is betaine aldehyde. From betaine aldehyde, the second betaine dehydrogenase enzyme, it acts, coenzyme is NAD, and we get betaine. And betaine is being acted upon by third enzyme, betaine homocysteine and methyl transferase. So methyl group is being donated, and the structure betaine is converted into dimethylglycine. Dimethylglycine. Dimethylglycine is converted into sarcosine by the activity of fourth enzyme, sarcosine demethylase. In this step, methyl group is donated in the form of a formaldehyde, CH2O. So dimethylglycine is converted into sarcosine, and the final step is that sarcosine is converted into glycine in the presence of sarcosine oxidase. And finally, we are able to get the glycine. So this is a pathway by which we get glycine from choline. Now, we can get glycine, our body can synthesize glycine from serine. Serine, the serine hydroxymethyl transferase reaction. The reaction is freely reversible. So our body can synthesize serine from glycine or glycine from serine. The reaction is freely reversible. Tetrahydrofolate, this is H4 is tetrahydrofolate. When serine has to be converted into glycine, tetrahydrofolate is converted into methylene tetrahydrofolate. Methylene tetrahydrofolate. So it is cut, the structure is cut from here, and we get directly glycine. Similarly, if you add the same group to glycine under the activity of hydroxymethyl transferase, what will happen? Methylene tetrahydrofolate will be converted into tetrahydrofolane, and glycine will be converted into serine. So this is how a glycine is synthesized from serine. Now proline, which is synthesized in our body from glutamate in 4 steps. In the very first step, glutamate is converted into glutamate gamma phosphate, and this phosphate group is attached on the gamma carbon. Energy dependent reaction. So the immediate precursor we get is glutamate gamma phosphate. Glutamate gamma phosphate in the next step, in the second step, it is converted into glutamate gamma semialdehyde. This is glutamate gamma semialdehyde. So glutamate gamma phosphate is converted into glutamate gamma semialdehyde. In the next step, glutamate gamma semialdehyde is converted into pyrroline 5-carboxylate. This is the structure of pyrroline 5-carboxylate. And in the final step, this pyrroline 5-carboxylate is converted into proline. So from glutamate, we are able to synthesize proline in four steps. The very first step in the conversion is the conversion of glutamate into glutamate gamma phosphate, leading to ultimately the formation of proline. Now cysteine, which is a sulfur-containing amino acid. It is nutritionally non-essential amino acid because our body can synthesize cysteine from methionine. You know, methionine, in its metabolism, it is converted into homocysteine, the sulfur-containing form. This homocysteine combines with the serine. Serine actually is incorporated into the methionine metabolism. It enters here at this step. So L-homocysteine is converted into cystathionine by the addition of serine. And ultimately, hydrolysis of cystathionine leads to the formation of two compounds, homoserine and cysteine. You can clearly note that the only difference between the structures of serine and cysteine is the presence of sulfur in cysteine. The rest of the structure is same. So you can say that serine enters in the metabolism of methionine and it is released in the form of cysteine. So cysteine, which is a sulfur-containing compound, after the hydrolysis of cystathionine, our body synthesizes, and the remaining compound left is homoserine. So this is how cysteine, a nutritionally non-essential sulfur-containing amino acid, is synthesized in our body from methionine. Now tyrosine, which is a nutritionally non-essential amino acid, we get our body synthesized tyrosine from the essential amino acid phenylalanine. Phenylalanine, you simply add hydroxyl group on the phenylalanine, you get tyrosine. So the enzyme will be phenylalanine hydroxylase. So what happens? This reaction is irreversible, remember. Phenylalanine, by the activity of this enzyme phenylalanine hydroxylase, it is converted into tyrosine. On this structure of phenylalanine, hydroxyl group is added. Hydroxyl group is added in the presence of this enzyme, and the coenzyme is tetrahydrobiopterin. It is similar to the tetrahydrofolate. The functions are the same, to provide the reducing equivalents. So here, in this reaction, the conversion of phenylalanine to tyrosine, the reducing equivalents are provided by tetrahydrobiopterin, which itself is converted into dihydrobiopterin, in the presence of which enzyme? Phenylalanine hydroxylase. So as I told you, this reaction is irreversible. So our body cannot synthesize phenylalanine from tyrosine. That is why phenylalanine is absolute essential amino acid. And this tyrosine, because we are synthesizing, our body is synthesizing from phenylalanine. So this is a nutritionally non-essential amino acid. So if this is not present in our diet, it will not lead to any serious consequences regarding our health. So this tetrahydrobiopterin, what is converted into dihydrobiopterin, again this tetra form is resynthesized and the reducing equivalents are delivered by NADPH, which itself is converted into NADP. So this is the whole story of how tyrosine, which is a nutritionally non-essential amino acid, is synthesized in our body from phenylalanine. Now these two amino acids, these are derived amino acids, hydroxyproline and hydroxylysine. Hydroxylation of proline leads to the formation of this hydroxyproline, and similarly the hydroxylation of lysine going to produce this derived amino acid hydroxylysine. These derived amino acids, hydroxyproline and hydroxylysine, they are exclusively present in collagen. So here you see the reaction. This is a peptide rich in proline amino acid. So what is going to happen? It is going to be converted into hydroxyproline by the activity of enzyme prolyl hydroxylase. So prolyl hydroxylase requires four substrates beside this proline rich peptide. The four substrates require the molecular oxygen. That molecular oxygen is used by both ascorbic acid, that is vitamin C, and succinic acid, succinate. So the four substrates required for the conversion of proline to hydroxyproline is molecular oxygen, vitamin C, iron in ferrous form, and alpha ketoglutarate. So in the presence of all these prerequisites, proline is converted into hydroxyproline by the enzyme prolyl hydroxylase. Lysyl hydroxylase catalyzes similar reactions for lysine. So the peptide which is rich in lysine residues, the same hydroxylation takes place, but by the enzyme which is lysyl hydroxylase. So lysine will be converted into hydroxylysine. Hydroxyproline and hydroxylysine arise from proline and lysine. This is how our body synthesize these derived amino acid. Selenocysteine, which is considered as the 22nd amino acid, while its occurrence in proteins is uncommon, selenocysteine is present at the active site, catalytic domain of several human enzymes that catalyze redox reaction. Example, glutathione peroxidase, which is antioxidant, deiodinase that converts thyroxine into triiodothyronine, the most active form of a thyroid hormone. Selenocysteine participate in catalytic mechanisms of these enzymes. So their presence in the catalytic domain confirms this property. At least 25 human selenoproteins are known. So every protein which is having the selenium in its structure, all those proteins are called selenoproteins. Now this slide is showing you how selenocysteine is synthesized. This is the structure of selenocysteine. The selenium donor is selenophosphate. Selenophosphate itself, it is synthesized from selenate and ATP. So active form of selenium, which is selenate, combines with the ATP, we get selenophosphate. So this selenophosphate is donor of this selenium. Selenophosphate formed from ATP and selenate serves as the selenium donor. Biosynthesis of selenocysteine, this one, requires cysteine. This is the structure, whole structure of serine. Requires cysteine, selenate, ATP, a specific transfer RNA, and several enzymes. Serine provides the carbon skeleton of selenocysteine. So this carbon skeleton is from serine. Rest of the prerequisite for this synthesis of selenocysteine, these are selenophosphate, ATP, transfer RNA, and several enzymes. So ultimately we get selenocysteine. Now this is the final slide, which is showing the sulfur which is present in the sulfur containing non-essential amino acid cysteine. It is replaced by selenium. So when sulfur of sulfhydryl group is removed or replaced by selenium, it becomes selenocysteine. This is selenocysteine. Incorporation of selenocysteine into proteins during translation is carried out by codon, namely UGA. And it is interesting to note that UGA is normally a stop codon. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for today's lecture. Inshallah, we'll meet in our next lecture very soon. Stay safe, stay blessed.